Krishna Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gora Gora Bhakta Vrindam Bola.
Srila Prabhupada encouraged me in two areas of service. And one was cooking for some bizarre reason. I had no desire to cook before I came to Krishna Consciousness and really wanted as far away from it as possible. It seemed like cleaning up all the time wasn't a very fun thing to do. And half of cooking is cleaning. But it turned out that I found out that Krishna Consciousness is sometimes called the kitchen religion, right? So one of the most powerful things we can do to spread Krishna Consciousness is actually cook for Krishna. And then I found out actually that cooking for Krishna was really different than cooking for any other reason.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
So cooking was one, and deity, the study of Archana or deity worship was another. So in my short time I met Prabhupada. I was 25 years old in New York in 1966 and went to my sister's wedding. And it was the first wedding in ISKCON. And the first thing Prabhupada engaged me in was cooking. Said, how many members have come from your family to attend the wedding? And I said, well, Swamiji, I'm the only one. Oh, this is most unusual. So all of you know how big a wedding is, an event in someone's life. He said, never mind. He said, you can help me cook. Now this is the first hour of the first day of my life with Srila Prabhupada. So he engaged me in cooking, and was fascinated from that moment. And then I was only in New York for a short time for this wedding, maybe about 10 days altogether. And then my sister, younger sister Janki, and her betrothed, who's Michael, and he became a Kunta. They had just been initiated very short time before the wedding. The three of us drove across country and went to see our old friends who were in Oregon on a mountain lookout tower, and their names were Sam and Melanie. And they later became Shamsundar and Malati Devi.
Actually, in those days, we were so inefficient at everything that we did, and so incapable of knowing the significance of what initiation meant. And I remember that, of course, at our fire yagya for the marriage, we we didn't have enough money to buy butter, so we used margarine. And when Srila Prabhupada tried to start the fire, he picked up a piece of wood and he dipped it in. Beautiful. Prabhupada's hands were magnificent, long fingers, like this. He picked it up and held it over the flame, and it went. He did it again. Over the fire, no action. So he looked up very grave and said, "Oh, this marriage will have a very slow start." I was mortified at that. I thought, uh-oh, what have I gotten into now? But yeah, very significant. I suppose at initiation, I do remember very clearly that Srila Prabhupada first gave me the name Kalindi, which is another name of Jamuna. And very quickly, within 10-12 seconds, he said, "No, it is Jamuna Devi." And I said, "What does that mean, Swamiji?" And he said, "The river that Krishna sports in Vrindavan is Jamuna." Prabhupada kept Krishna consciousness very simple. And for those of us who engaged in his service, at least my relationship was simply to hear and to follow those instructions personally. When we arrived in London in 1968, our small party decided that the best way to become known, Prabhupada wanted us to make a splash. So the best way to become known would be reach the Beatles, because they were luminaries of the time. So we agreed that we would make prasadam dishes, apple dishes, to bring to Apple Records every day and see if we could catch someone's attention. So we did that, and the prasad went from the lower floors to the upper floors, so that ultimately everyone tasted some of that prasad, and they became a little addicted to that. So finally, when we stopped sending prasad, we were notified, where is this Apple Hare Krishna group? So we came to meet them, and ultimately, I think, met George that day. And the first person to strike off a serious friendship with George was Shamsunder. He and George Harrison just clicked. They were like brothers. Shamsunder used to rock back and forth. He was a tall, thin man. He used to rock back and forth. And I remember when he met George, he was rocking back and forth. And George Harrison started rocking back and forth like this. And practically their whole relationship was, I remember, like this, back and forth. Very close friends they became. But ultimately through that, George became aware of our chanting. Now Mukunda Maharaj, now then Mukunda Das, he was a musical genius, an arranger and a composer, and he was the leader of our group. We all played instruments, and he composed the melody for Govindam, and we used to go about London and do Sankirtan at various places, the Arts Lab and a macrobiotic restaurant. So we were pretty tight musically. And when George heard that we were into transcendental chanting and chanting Hare Krishna, he really wanted to hear us. And almost right away we started having really good kirtans with him at his house, and said, "I want to record this." And so the first thing we did was the Hare Krishna mantra on a 45, and I believe it's Sri Krishna on the backside. That became number 1 in Czechoslovakia, was top 10, topped the pops in England. And then that led to the larger album, the Govindam album, which the lead cut was the Rama Samhita, the Govindam prayers. So Srila Prabhupada was, of course, very happy with the involvement that we were having with the Beatles. We ultimately lived at John Lennon's Tittenhurst estate for much of the fall of '69. And when Srila Prabhupada finally did arrive, he was so very pleased of this connection. I believe he called that Govindam cut a Krishna Conscious Symphony. This is a Krishna Conscious Symphony. Very transcendental. You like that?
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Aravindadalayataksham Bharavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundaranam Kandar Agom Vikamaniya Vishesha Shobha
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyan Vipan Vikayanti Chiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami.
We were sent here in '68, and as all you all know, it took a whole year before Srila Prabhupada came to England. What month did he come in, everyone? September. Okay. So he came September of 1969, and that was, monumental. You've all heard from the devotees some of that arrival, and so we went to this estate in Ascot, Berkshire, that was then owned by Beatle John Lennon. It's called Tittenhurst, the place. And by and large, the Shamshunder was every day in Bury Place, and so were Mukunda and Guru Dasi, and serving almost every day in London. And Malati had her little baby she took care of, but Janki, Malati, and I were in Srila Prabhupada's service as cooks. So I was thinking if I could share with you something that you might not know or have ever heard before, but it's so important, and I give the example that suppose Gopal Bhatt Goswami gave his disciples recipes and cooking instructions. How fortunate would all those disciples be? And he almost did that by giving us the principles of how to worship the deity. And for 500 years, the Sevites at Radharaman Temple have been honoring those instructions, not only in spirit, but in procedure. So we are so fortunate that we can pass on to you direct instructions in terms of cooking for the pleasure of the deity, recipes that Prabhupada gave us.
Yamuna is a very extraordinary soul, and this was something that, that was, if we didn't get it, Prabhupada got it right away. And very early on, before even any of us really understood what was happening to our lives, we were just attracted to this magnetic personality who was so extraordinary and so real, and taking our hearts to where they had never been before. Mm-hmm. But I remember in these early days in San Francisco how he was definitely giving instructions to Yamuna. And one time he wrote in a letter that she was experiencing bhava. So we didn't even know what bhava was basically at that point, but she was experiencing it. She probably knew. When I say we, I mean the rest of us who were trying to figure out what we were doing. But Yamuna was very attentive and very submissive and always inquiring. The three primary qualities for a disciple to exhibit at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. And because of those qualities, he was reciprocating by giving her many wonderful lessons, which now she is sharing with us, and throughout the years she has graciously imparted to those who also desired to know.
Prabhupada sent the recipe for this dish. You call it, it's spelled differently in the folio. Called it should be bhuni or bunji khichdi. It's a thick khichdi. It's been served for hundreds of years in Jagannath Puri. And what it is essentially a thick khichdi. We're talking about gila, so this is a thick khichdi. And it's spiced, who knows what pushpana is? Any of you know what that is? Prabhupada's recipe? So you have to learn these things. We have to pass these things on. He introduced pushpana in 67. We served pushpana in 67.
At my wedding.
So that's January 25th, 1967. The dish has sweet spices in it. So long dolcini, elaichi, like this, and sugar, and nuts, and chopped paneer, fried paneer, and sweet fruits. And this is a dish that's served to Lord Jagannath, and Prabhupada said that this should be served as the main dish at every Rath Yatra feast. He also wrote a letter early in February of the same year to Krishna Das with slightly different instructions, but it should also be served. So you are truly the first yatra to have a direct instruction from Srila Prabhupada as to the nature of what to serve Lord Jagannath for these Rath Yatra feasts. And I'm sure it's already in place, but again, it's up to you to see that it remains so, because it's very, very special for this yatra, and that recipe is there as well. So when we first came to England, we found out, as you all know, kheer, the traditional kheer that Srila Prabhupada taught us to make is made usually with rice. It's the most famous kheer, so that'd be chaval kheer. And then we find out there are many, many, many areas in India that have different varieties of this chaval kheer, called different names in the south or in the east. But when we came to England, we were very excited that we found something called flat rice in Sainsbury. And this isn't poha, flat rice, like from an Indian shop, but it's a waxy rice that has been pressed into flakes and is a little shiny. And all you have to do is put this in the oven with some sugar and ghee and spices and bake it, and you only have to stir it twice, as opposed to the kind of kheer that you must stir constantly to bake down. So this became a real big favorite of ours. We called it baked rice kheer, and we served it with often with rhubarb slush, kind of a rhubarb compote, and then double cream on Cornish clotted double cream. or whipping cream on top. So when we're reading CC, you'll find a description of a similar kind of transcendental concoction that's served. So the first feast that was served to Sri Sri Radha Landaneshwara had this kheer in it. And Srila Prabhupada loved it very, very much. And it became a favorite of the devotees. And as you know, that Radha Landaneshwara was installed with only one dress, a saffronish golden yellow dress. And the second dress that we offered was on 3rd February 1970, on Advaita Acharya's appearance day. And I decided to make this sweet. So for those of you who are interested in George Harrison trivia, I can tell you this, that this man was nuts about this dish. And he told me, he said, now, I like a lot, I can't imitate him, but I like a lot of prasadam you offer there at the temple. But if you ever make that dish, you give me a ring. And I'll be there. And so I didn't have a ring-me-up kind of relationship with George, but I did, on this occasion, give him a ring the day before. I said, George, we're going to offer a dress tomorrow, and I'm going to make some of that kheer to offer to Radha Landaneshwara. All right, hang up the phone. 2 hours later, a florist van comes to the front of the temple, and he unloads flower vase after flower vase that are wall sconce arrangements, 8 of them, that go on the side of the wall, and a little card on it said, "We'll be there." No signature, right? So the next day, all the devotees, there's so much excitement that we get to offer the deities a new dress, because we were very short-handed. I couldn't begin to say the glories of the devotees that were serving together at that time. The word family has been mentioned, but it's far beyond that. It was a situation where devotional service was so strong, the love for Radha Landaneshwara was so strong that relationships became very tight. We were definitely God brothers and God sisters. We were definitely Prabhus. We were definitely lovers of the deity, and the deity was at the center.
Jaya Sisi Radha Landaneshwara Radha Landaneshwara Radha Landaneshwara Radhe Radhe. Radha Landaneshwara Radha Landaneshwara Radha Landaneshwara Radhe Radhe. Radhe 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 Radhe. Radhe 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 Jaya 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 Radhe.
But cooking, service for cooking, I've spoken to many persons who had the honor or the privilege to try to serve Srila Prabhupada in this capacity, and almost every one of them spoke about this aspect. All of you can try to think how you feel close to your spiritual master, how you feel close to the Archa Vigraha that you worship in the temple, and how you feel close to those that you value Sangha with. How time plays a feature and how consciousness of pleasing them is there. Srila Prabhupada's given us 6 exchanges of love in Nectar of Instruction, and 2 of them are actually around prasadam. 2 of the 6. And they are what? Offering prasadam to others and receiving prasadam from them. So they're really important. And what makes them potent is the consciousness with which they are conceived of executed, offered, and then given. And it can be so strong. We see it changes people's lives. Even if they don't know it, they might just say, oh, this tastes good, or this tastes sweet, or something that they like. But it changes their lives, doesn't it? So we have to thank Srila Prabhupada for this incredible gift. And today there was an interviewer that asked some of the things that made ISKCON glorious, or in the last 40 years, some things that we treasure, and what in the next 40 years we should treasure. And one of them is this incredible exchange of the meditation of trying to please Krishna's senses. If we cook for ourselves, we please to a certain degree. Everyone likes something that tastes good. But if we please Krishna's senses, this takes us into another dimension of power and glory and purification. Purification of the heart, purification of the senses, purification of the mind, purification of the emotions, everything that we can evaluate human consciousness with. This act of trying to cook in devotion for the pleasure of the Lord changes everything in our lives. And every devotee that does it is a testimonial to its power, and it's all individual and it's all glorious. So try to, in our busy lives, or whatever our situation is in life, we want to try to aspire for this purity that Prabhupada gave in this one simple little area, and try to save this whole planet. And I think I hear a quiet conch shell, which means we get to turn our attention to the object of our attention.
Vishesha Oh